Well, hey, it's great to meet you, and I'm looking forward to getting into your work and your mission and who you are. And to begin that process, how did you survive the last 3.5 years? How did you get through the pandemic, and how did it change you?
Good question. And so I am a traveling doctor. They call us locums doctors. And I would always be traveling from hospital to hospital. What happened in 2020? Well, I was supposed to go to Hawaii for the first time, and Hawaii is very, very difficult to get into. But my Hawaii job got canceled because of COVID,
Yeah,
and all the jobs went down. In During that time, however, I was writing my novel, and I needed more time to write my novel. And fortunately, because I don't have like kids to put through school, I don't have any big expenditures. I just lived off of my savings, and I
yeah.
just sort of, I was careful not to spend what I don't have. But I was at home. I kind of moved back from California. I came back to Florida. I got into gardening. But 2020 was so important because I realized I don't want to work myself to death. I don't want to work that much. Why am I working nonstop for so much money when I'm actually happier with a little bit less work and a little bit less money?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I am naturally an introvert. I must say that. I'm a
sure.
big introvert. So it wasn't as hard as me as it is on other people. And I understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you obviously are an author and a doctor, but let's get to the heart and soul of what you do on a daily basis. If I put you in front of a bunch of third graders at career day, and one of the kids said, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How would you answer that child?
Okay, I would say, so in case somebody gets sick and they go to a hospital, to an emergency room, when the emergency room doctor decides, hey, you're really sick, we got to keep you in the hospital for a few days at least, then they call someone like me. I become their hospital doctor, and I take over everything that happens in the hospital. And if they need a surgeon, I'll get a surgeon involved. If they need a heart specialist, I'll get a heart specialist involved. And when they're all fine and better, then I'm the one who tells them, like, you're okay, this is all that happened, now you can go home.
So you're like an ombudsman. You really kind of go through and navigate all of the different areas. And how common is that in the American hospital system?
That's another good question. So hospitalist is what they call us. Hospitalists didn't used to exist until the 1980s. The old model was your primary care doctor who's sitting in his clinic would have to actually go after work to the hospital, drive there, and then see you if you were admitted there. But that wasn't really working that well because sometimes patients just didn't get seen, and that was accepted back in the past, that you didn't get seen for a day by your doctor. In the 1980s, when we had this huge HIV/AIDS epidemic, San Francisco, I believe, was the first city to create this hospitalist job. And they said, especially because a lot of doctors were afraid to go and catch HIV, which, it doesn't spread that way. But they hired doctors who would just be in the hospital, and their job was to see all the hospitalized patients. And slowly that just became the new model that we have now. So clinic doctors rarely ever will have to leave their clinic, go to the hospital, and then go back and forth and stuff like that.
It seems like that would be a much more logical, specialized way to deliver care that would be beneficial to the patient. It has to immediately give a patient some level of comfort. Do you notice that? Is that true?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Some patients still ask me, why is my own doctor not coming to see me? And I have to explain, like, that probably isn't a very good idea if we were waiting for them to come after clinic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream to grow up and become?
Third grade, I changed a lot when I was growing. Third grade, I don't know. I probably wanted to be someone who just gets to run around and play.
So
I
how did
probably had no concept of a job.
yeah, well, so how did this happen? Take me back to where you were born and raised and how medicine and even writing became your life and evolved into who you are today.
Yeah, so I was actually born in Pakistan, and when I was 16 years old, I sort of got a little depressed by the world because I started watching the news, and I was very interested. Before, I had never really cared. And I'm watching all these news, and there's like conflicts happening everywhere. Even back then, there was an Israel-Palestine conflict, there's a Bosnia conflict, and then there's a Kosovo conflict. And I felt, like, very sensitive. I was very sensitive back then. And I decided I would like the job where I'm helping both sides. So if it ever comes to a conflict situation, I want to be able to help both sides of the situation and try to stay above the conflict. I loved studying science as it was. So I just sort of kept taking my science subjects until I found myself in pre-med. And then the next logical step was medical school.
Wow,
So
that's fascinating. I just started reading a book yesterday about a group of kids in Afghanistan and kind of the culture. Because I don't know if a lot of Americans understand exactly the inner workings of how, even in Pakistan and other areas, but there was one part in there where they were talking about one of the kids was coming home, and I don't know exactly where he was going to, but he had to land in Pakistan and drive. There was NATO regulations, and they had to drive like 4 hours into Afghanistan. I don't know if that's still the case, but they were just talking about how long that journey is and how you couldn't take a flight. There was too much danger going on. But that, I think that's a thing that maybe Americans don't realize, is that, just like you said, how many conflicts and how many things are become the tapestry of the youth, and that's what they know. That's one of the backbones. Like when you talk to American kids, it's like, I want to be a vet, or I want to do this, or I want to do that. But there's different mentalities around the world based on warfare, because half the time it's survival.
Yeah, American kids don't realize a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
they really don't. And even especially it's especially sad to me when they're the kids of immigrants who don't understand how
yeah,
lucky they are to be
yeah,
born here, because we work so hard to come here. It's such a better life. It's such a better organized society.
yeah,
You have laws here that people follow. You have people who will enforce the laws.
yeah,
It's it's yeah. So I knew I wanted to move here when I saw just like American TV shows or movies, and I was like, oh, that's freedom. That's how we're supposed to be.
yeah,
No,
yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
So let me ask you this. Who's been a hero for you? You've obviously been inspired, but who's been that for you?
In my personal life, my dad has actually been a hero for me. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
he's a calm, collective force in the family, and he's very loving, and he's very well read as well.
yeah,
So he's always like, he reads more than I think most people that I know, and that alone, that quality alone, puts people on a separate level, right? You can never like reach up to that person who's read so many books
yeah,
and they know something about everything.
yeah.
And he's also very supportive. So that was very important to me growing up. Yeah.
So what does he do for a profession?
He was actually back in Pakistan, he was in the government.
Okay.
He was like a government officer, which is a very interesting job. Me in my family, with the kind of discussions we had, I have a good understanding of how both sides work, like what the regular person sees and how the government is trying to do things behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And I feel like everyone should know these things. Then we wouldn't have so many conspiracy theories and all
Right.
of the polarized blaming and paranoia, right? They're just humans. Your government is you, is the
Yeah.
bunch of you that decided to go into the government.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Well, I know, I think it's either, it might be in Israel, but I know in Switzerland, there's kind of a mandatory military time that you have to spend. And
Oh,
during that
Israel,
time,
definitely.
yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of a part of, um, understanding how your government works. And the irony is that most Americans have no idea about the branches of government, the laws, how the Declaration of Independence, all those things, but it's always the immigrant population that know that like the back of their hand.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's true.
So
It's
we would pay more attention to American elections than we would to our own elections because
yeah,
they're so important. They affect the whole world.
yeah, absolutely they do. Yeah. And in this modern era, it's getting really, really intense. We don't
Yeah.
need to go there. But at any rate, if you can meet anybody alive on the planet right now, one person, who would you love to meet and talk to?
Who's alive?
Yeah, well, we could open it up to the ghost if you want.
Oh gosh, this is something I never thought about. I want to say I would want to meet someone, and I might not know their name, but someone who is on the leading edges of research in in maybe quantum physics and quantum mechanics and reality, because there's so much unclear about that. And
Mhm.
people take it and they run with it and they go into their spiritual thing, which is nice. But I want to understand what they can't understand, if they can explain it to me. It's something I've always been fascinated by.
Yeah, well, in science, that's the thing. As much as we've discovered, there's so many things that we still do need to figure out. Someone was explaining to me the other day that somebody was going up for a Nobel Peace Prize for being able to actually measure energy transference between humans. So
Nice.
it's almost akin to the idea of reading thoughts. I mean, we're getting to that point, you know, where I mean, we're talking about AI, which is that's mind blowing in itself, you know. So um, we just keep advancing. So, what is your motivation? What is your motivation every day to help people, to be in medicine, to write, at your story? What is that for you?
Um, I really do just want to help people. I want to, there's a part of me that really wants to fix problems. And it really inspired me to study and study really hard and graduate like one of the top people in my class again and again through medical school and everything. And then there's a part of me that I feel like, because I am an intellectual person and I am an introvert and I am a little different from many other people, like I I was a hermit for the past 3 years. I was a very happy hermit, right? I have my own little special, unique things that I can do that maybe another person who has kids and family and other interests might not. So I feel like if I can see the problem and I can understand the problem and I can study it, and I love studying problems and coming up with solutions, that's sort of how my brain works. So I want to give that to people. And that's why I studied medicine. So I can just like, hey, this is what you have. And now that's become easy for me. And I used to think about other problems. I used to think about the whole world's problems, climate
Yeah,
change and this and that. And that's kind of how I started writing my book, because it was sort of like a self-therapy. Like, okay, we are missing the deadlines. What's going to happen? And I've been reading about it for years. So I did a lot of research in that and I started writing. And in that, I kind of found some solutions. It just kind of wrote itself. So
yeah, fascinating. So, of all of the things that you've done professionally, what's one of your favorite success stories?
well, before it was, I love it when I get good scores on tests. So before it was those, like graduating with honors and getting high scores. But I have to say, recently it's my book. I am so proud of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. What do you miss the most about Pakistan? And what do you like the best about living in America?
Right. That's a good question. I was actually thinking of visiting again next month. I haven't been there in 10 years. Um, Most of the time, I have to be honest, I don't miss it, because I remember how extremely conservative the society was and had become,
Yeah,
especially after 9/11, when everyone was in the mindset that the West wants to attack Islam, right? And people I knew started like wearing the hijab, that who have never worn it before, or growing the beard, like these symbolism type things. And me being someone who just wants to be a human being first, and I just kind of want to be able to walk down the street, I can't. So I don't miss it a lot. But I do, what I do miss is when you go to these poor countries, and especially in Pakistan, there's this whole layer of just everyone is kind of spiritual and everyone is sort of humble. No one's going to be, well, there are the bad, I want to say bad guys, but there are the people who are more aggressive. But a lot of people are just content with very little,
yeah,
and they just are surviving, and they're really not a threat to anyone. They're
yeah,
just poor, humble people. And when you're living there day after day, it affects you.
yeah,
And it sort of can break away these walls where in America we're on a like it's like a rat race and you're competitive, right? And everyone's doing something, everyone's capitalizing, everyone's industrious here. Over there, it's like, no, it's not at all like that.
yeah,
Which is, if I'm making any sense, that's kind of, I
yeah,
miss that sometimes.
yeah. I understand. I understand. Yeah. What's the best advice you've ever gotten?
The best advice I've ever gotten is to trust myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, you have to earn your own trust as well.
Yeah,
So,
for
but when you
sure.
do, it's so good.
So let's say we get off this call and a time machine pulls up in front of your house and you can go anywhere in history and see one event in human history with your own eyes. Where do you want to go? What would you love to see?
I would want to go to the future.
Well, there you go. That's a good answer. How
Yeah.
far into it?
Oh, oh, how far into it? If I have to give a number, I'd say 200 years into the future.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be
Yeah.
interesting for
Yeah.
sure. So let me ask you this. Everyone out there has a perception of you. You have family, friends, clients, all your colleagues, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Okay. Yeah, I think I am a very independent thinker, analytical. Um, I didn't used to call myself feminist, but I think I should call myself feminist because what I think is common sense to the world is feminism.
Yeah. Yeah.
and and I would call myself this a free spirit. Definitely someone who's very spiritual. I feel I'm learning that I'm definitely more spiritual than other people. All the kind of books I read and my interests, and yeah, yeah.
So do you feel like since we've survived this pandemic and we're kind of entering a new era, that maybe we're as humanity entering a spiritual awakening? Do you sense that?
I do. I definitely sensed that after I joined TikTok a couple of years ago. And I also felt it happened to me myself. Part of it was from writing the book. I was very, very deep into trying to find answers. And a lot of answers were spiritual answers of how we need to change and evolve and just be the better versions of ourselves. But I am seeing all sorts of things out there. There are people having their spiritual experiences in their own ways, ranging from a lot of people doing tarot card readings to a lot of people doing healings, which I think is really, really cute. There are people taking their time out and just doing these healings on TikTok for whoever's tuned in. They're just sending out these good vibes. And then there's also people, I don't know if you've seen this, practicing telekinesis.
Uh-uh.
There's people practicing these kinds of things, and they, when you speak to them, they're like, yeah, I've been meditating on this for a long time, and they've been literally following schools of thought so that they can get to it. And first you think it's fake,
Yeah.
but then you keep seeing it and you're like, how did they fake that? That's real, and there's so many people doing it. So it
Yeah.
is exciting, especially all the younger people, like they're practicing all these things.
Yeah.
It's fun. Yeah.
That's fascinating. So if anyone out there wants to pick up your book, learn more about you, reach out, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, there's a website. It's called planetbthebook.com. My book's name is not Planet B. My book's name is With Love from Planet B. And it's on Amazon for $1, or if you're on Kindle, you can read it free on Kindle. It's on Audible. It's soon going to be on Spotify and all the audiobook outlets, Apple Books, Google. I'm going with the wide distribution so everyone can read it.
Yeah.
And I also want, like, it's not basically something I'm doing for money, which is why, the ebook is just $1. I want people from all over the world to read it. So if someone is from a poor country and $1 is too much for them, I'm going to put a download link on my website soon, not right now, so that they can just download it. Like if they're in Africa or Asia, or they don't have a credit card account, So yeah, but that's planetbthebook.com, and the book's name is With Love from Planet B.
Excellent. Congratulations on the book. Thank you so much for imparting your story. Have a wonderful 2024.
Thank you. You too. You too. Have a good day.
You too. And real quick before you go, how do you properly pronounce your full name?
My pen name is Zaayin Salaam.
Okay. Okay.
Zaayin. Yeah.
Excellent. Just want to make sure I got it down right. Thank you again. I appreciate it.
Have a great day.
You too. Take care.
Okay.
See ya.